Mark Cuban's been on Real Vision a few times, and he's been a crypto bull, and you weren't a bull for a while, and finally, you kind of realized that this is probably a bigger opportunity than you thought. Talk us through that whole shift in your mentality on this.
Yeah, what actually happened was I became an owner of Bitcoin and Ethereum back in 2017. That's when I first purchased my coins. Unfortunately, if you recall the environment at that time, and remember, I'm the chairman of highly regulated companies involved in issuing ETFs and all kinds of other areas of financial services. And the regulator was extremely, I'm trying to pick the right word, but was not a fan of cryptocurrencies. And there were many situations going on regarding, the early adoption of tokens and digitization of values around what could almost be called securities that they were not happy with. And I had no choice but to keep my mouth shut. From my point of view, when you're in the regulated business, you do not go against the regulator. You just can't. I can't do that. In any country where I'm regulated, and Canada's one of them, Switzerland, all the European, I'm a participant in those public markets. I can't be offside. So that's not an excuse, it's just a fact. Now, in the last 6 months, you've seen it happen. The regulator in Switzerland, in France, in Germany, in UK, in Australia, New Zealand, and Canada have all eased up. They've begun to realize that there, yes, is demand for crypto. There is a digital economy emerging. The Canadians even allowed the first ETFs last month, and there's, I think, there's 3 of them on the market now, and I think 2 more in registration. So now you can buy an actual ETF with one asset in it, Bitcoin. And so as a result of that, it has changed my views about being able to go and allocate publicly 3% of my portfolio to Bitcoin. Now, there's something else that happened that you should be aware of. I work very closely with institutions, not just domestically, because when I'm indexing, I'm making product to serve them, but also the sovereign indexes in the Middle East and in Europe as well. When I came out and said, look, it was a coming out as you speak, that's true, that's what happened, that I'm going to a 3% weighting, I got inundated with phone calls from institutions that that know me well and said, where is the coin coming from that you own? And I said, who cares? Because as you know, in the way the blockchain works with Bitcoin is you get to know the moment it was born or created, but you don't know where. And they said, well, we have a problem. We do not want to own coin made in China or any country under sanctions with any of our, European or US counterparts, or companies that waste electricity and are not close to carbon neutral, or are being mined in unethical countries where there's human abuse, rights abuses. Now, that's a whole new ballgame, because you got to realize that the majority of institutions that I work with have never touched crypto. It's not an asset class for them. I would bet that less than 4% that could buy Bitcoin do buy it right now. And they've now built, as you're well aware, these ethics committees, these ESG committees, and these, climate control considerations that all came out of the Larry Fink letter last year. CalPERS talks about it now. Before you can even get an allocation to a new asset class, it has to go through the ethics committee. And so I got inundated with phone calls saying, look, how do you know these coins weren't made in China? And of course, I didn't. So here's how I've solved the problem. This is the way I look at it. Going forward, the only way I can know with certainty that I own coin that was not mined in China is if I mine it myself. So I've reached out to many of the large and smaller miners all around the world in countries like Denmark and Sweden and other jurisdictions, Northern Canada. Some of these jurisdictions spend a lot less electricity because they don't have to air condition the servers as much. So I'm very concerned that I be carbon neutral as I can be. And I've said, look, you need capital. You want to grow your capacity. You want new technology. You need to invest. I'm here. I'll be your partner. I'll invest in your mine. We'll expand its capacity. And here's what I want in exchange. Pay me a royalty in virgin coin. So every single coin that you make from this new capacity, I get a portion of them virgin to me. And that way I can say with certainty to every institution that asks me, where do your coin come from? It's all compliant, it's all ethical, and it's very well, in terms of productivity, made with as little electricity as possible. Now, when I came out and said that, all of a sudden, lots of institutions called me and said, wait a second, why can't we partner with you? We have the same problem. You have the same problem we have. You have capital you want to put to work? So do we. Let's partner on it. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm having conversations every day with miners all around the world, bringing them into this consortium of ethical miners that are compliant. That's what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. And I've been looking at this for a while. I mean, firstly, we all know that if you look at the most efficient Bitcoin miners outside of state subsidized places like China, they're actually in Iceland and they're using hydropower. They're driving a green revolution. You know, these are really good players. Or we look in Canada or even Texas where they're burning gas flare off that's being wasted. They're using that, again, incredibly efficient. And to buy it directly, I mean, I'm hearing of some people, Temasek in Singapore, I know have been buying directly from miners for several years now. They choose who they get it from. I don't know where they're buying it from, but it makes total sense because it gets around all of the ESG FUD, as they could talk about in crypto markets, and everybody can then show a face to their committees and say, listen, we've bought Virgin. We do the same with gold mining and diamonds and everything else. There's no reason why you can't have provenance.
That's the whole point. Yeah, I mean, I have to have provenance, and I don't want to own blood coin, the analogy to blood diamonds. I just don't want to be offside in that in any way because it takes me out of the domain that I do so much other work in, compliant with institutions. And so I believe, and that we haven't seen this happen yet because there's so little institutional investment yet in Bitcoin, but it's coming, that we are going to see a differentiation in value between a virgin coin with full provenance from creation to a China blood coin. And the majority of coins today are mined in China. They burn a tremendous amount of coal to do it. They're polluting. They have, obviously the human rights issues have been documented. There's a lot of tension about that, but I don't want any of that in my portfolio. I don't at all. And so we're going to see, I believe over time, there's 100 years worth of mining left to do, millions of coins yet to be mined. The ones that are mined ethically with provenance are going to be worth more. That's my speculation, if you will.
Yeah, it makes I think that's a really interesting thing. I mean, again, even for retail, to be able to launch an ETF in that space, if you can source enough virgin mined coins where you've got provenance, I mean, that's a very attractive proposition for many.
I think that will happen. I think that will happen.
And it does the space a lot of good because you're moving the mining share away from China, which is what needs to happen because it's too. If we all believe that Bitcoin is something that has a bigger, viable future, then it needs to move away from China, and this does that.
I think we should starve those mines until they're compliant. Until as I go right back to how we started this conversation. Until I have a level playing field with China, I would like to make their coin worthless, and I can do that by having other buyers say, I don't want blood coin from China, and until they get on board and they start to mine ethically with less electricity, less waste, more productivity. There's all kinds of technologies now that do exactly what you said earlier. Use energy that is already being spun off or wasted or flaring gas or hydroelectric that isn't in use and put that towards Bitcoin. That's far more, compliant with ESG committees and the right way to do it. I just think now that it's becoming a real issue and people are allocating up to 5% in Bitcoin. And I'm a believer. I think this asset class will perform very well over the next 20 years. I own British, pounds. I own Swiss francs. I own euros. I own Canadian dollars, US dollars. Why wouldn't I own Bitcoin? Why not?